Grandparents by that Rodney guy. Exterior, timeless Tucson retirement community. Morning, an upscale retirement home. Interior bathroom, day. June, early 80s, still beautiful, leans over the counter and applies bright red lipstick in a cheerleader uniform. Her ponytails sway as she moves. She checks her look, then hurriedly lights the 8 and 5 candles on a small cake. Walter, June's husband, calls from the other room.
June!
Just a minute. You don't want to ruin your surprise, do you?
Judy!
I'm coming.
June picks up the cake, starts singing happy birthday,
Happy birthday to you.
and exits. Interior bedroom continuous. June enters from the bathroom with the cake singing.
Happy birthday to you.
Walter lays on his back on the bed, feet on the ground. He is dressed like a football player, shoulder pads and all. An erection pokes up through his football pants.
Happy birthday to you.
June realizes Walter is not moving. His crystal blue eyes fixed on the ceiling. She drops the cake and rushes to him. Interior, St. Vincent's Medical Center, day. June sits in the waiting room wearing a jacket over her cheerleader uniform. Her mascara is streaked down her face, lipstick smeared. Next to her is Stephanie, late 30s African-American, dressed professionally. She comforts June. A doctor approaches. The two women rise to greet him.
I'm sorry. Viagra just doesn't mix well with other heart medications. I'm surprised he was able to get a prescription.
It's my fault.
June, it wasn't your fault.
I didn't know it would react with his heart medicine.
June.
What am I going to do? He was my everything. He was my world.
I'm so sorry, June. Why don't you have a seat? I'll take care of things from here. June looks at Stephanie, at the doctor, and around the room in shock. She looks out the door at the traffic going by. June?
I'm going to go outside for some fresh air.
Okay. I'll come get you when I'm done. June wanders towards the door. The doctor and Stephanie continue.
Is there any next of kin?
Afraid not. They had 2 children, but they both passed away. That's why they're staying at Timeless Tucson.
Exterior hospital, day. June walks down the driveway past several ambulances to the sidewalk, sits on a bench. She is despondent. She looks down the street and sees a large bus charging along. The driver is texting. She rises, walks to the curb, glances around. She notices a young woman hunched over on a bench a few feet away, rocking slowly. June looks back at the bus, takes a deep breath, and steps off the curb into the street. Then she hears sobbing. She looks back at the young woman and realizes she is crying. She looks at the bus careening down the street, back at the young woman, and steps back onto the curb. She approaches the young woman, sits next to her.
Hi, honey. What's the matter?
The young woman flinches.
There, sweetie. It's okay.
The young woman looks up at June. Tears run down her swollen and bruised face.
Oh, my. What happened?
The young woman turns towards June, revealing a newborn infant in her arms.
I can't keep him. Oh, what do you mean? I'm afraid his daddy will kill him. He didn't want him. What? Oh, that's terrible. I'm here to drop him off at the hospital, the Safe Haven Law. They'll take care of him, won't they?
The infant looks at June quietly. His big, clear blue eyes connect with her. She is mesmerized by his gaze.
May I hold him?
The young woman notices the connection between the two.
Sure.
She carefully passes the infant to June.
Oh, there now. Aren't you the most precious little thing?
The infant stares at June and smiles. Tears start to roll down June's face. She is completely lost to the infant's gaze. The sound of the traffic fades as the two stare at one another.
He looks like Walter did.
June looks up, but the young woman is gone.
Hello? Young lady?
She calls down the street, looks around. The young woman is nowhere in sight. June looks towards the hospital and sees Stephanie inside signing some papers. June rises, starts walking towards the hospital. She then glances down at the baby, who is staring at her intensely with a little smile. June thinks, turns, walks to the curb. She waves down a taxi, gets in with the baby, and drives off. Interior June's bedroom, day. June enters hurriedly with the infant and several bags of supplies from a grocery store. She carefully lays him on her bed and starts pulling out the supplies: diapers, baby bottles, formula.
Oh, you must be hungry. Are you hungry?
The infant stares at her as if he is trying to understand.
I'll make you some formula.
There is a knock at the door. June freezes, eyes large. She holds her finger to her pursed lips, looks at the baby. Exterior June's bedroom. Stephanie stands at the door.
June?
There is no answer. Stephanie pulls out a very large set of keys, searches for one, starts to slip it into the knob when...
Who is it?
June, thank goodness you're here. You can't go running off like that. I was worried. Are you okay?
I'm fine. I'm sorry, Stephanie. I was just upset. I took a taxi home.
June, I'm coming in so I can talk to you.
No, not right now. I'm just out of the shower.
Stephanie pulls the key out of the door.
I'm fine, really. I just want to rest.
Okay. Well, if you need anything, just let me know.
Thank you.
June, I'm so sorry.
I know. Thank you.
Stephanie turns around to a small group of residents that have gathered around her. Some in wheelchairs and walkers. This is a very old and tight-knit group. Mr. Hughes, mid-70s, rugged, stands in front.
Is she okay?
Mrs. McNeely, mid-70s, chimes in.
Of course she's not okay. She lost Walter today, you dolt.
You know what I mean. You mean woman. Why don't you control her?
Mr. McNeely, thin, glasses, answers.
I gave up 40 years ago.
Mrs. Sandburn, early 70s, earthy.
We're just concerned about her.
She's going to be fine. She just wants to rest. Why don't you all go back to your rooms and let her be? I'm sure when she wants visitors, she will let you know.
A tiny, very old woman, Mrs. Shilowatz, leans over to Mrs. Sandburn and yells.
What did she say?
She said she wants to rest.
What?
Later, she'll see us later.
Oh, okay.
The crowd disperses, mumbling amongst themselves. At the next door down, a very uptight woman, Mrs. Herbinger, scoffs at the group. She turns and enters her room with a huff, slams the door. The last to leave is Gustavo Fiorucci, a very handsome, well-groomed Italian man in his 90s. He passes Marjorie, June's best friend. She is impeccably dressed and polished. She holds a small bunch of flowers and a card.
Hello, Marjorie.
Hello, Gus.
It's a sad day indeed. Please let June know she is in my thoughts and the prayers.
I will.
Marjorie smiles, approaches June's door, and quietly knocks.
June?
I told you, I just want to rest.
June, it's me.
Interior June's bedroom. June's eyes light up.
Em, is that you?
Yes.
June opens the door and waves her in, smiling, quickly closes the door. Marjorie's surprised to see her smiling.
Oh, Junie, I'm so sorry.
What do you mean?
About Walter. How are you doing?
He's right here.
What?
June walks Marjorie over to the bed and presents Walter to her.
Isn't he precious? I named him Walter Jr.
June, whose baby is this?
He's mine.
What do you mean?
Well, there was this young woman at the hospital, and she handed him to me and just left.
Walter Jr. beams up at June.
I mean, what else was I supposed to do?
Oh, take him into the hospital?
Oh, they wouldn't care for him like I would.
June, you can't keep a newborn in an assisted living home.
Better here than some foster care house with an alcoholic mother and an abusive white rapper drug-addicted father.
June picks Walter Jr. up.
Aren't you being a little dramatic?
Just hold him.
No, I'm not going to play a part in this infant heist.
Here.
June passes Walter Jr. to Marjorie, who has to drop the flowers and card to take the baby. She gazes into Walter's eyes and becomes mesmerized by him.
Oh my. He's a little prince. He's just a tiny little prince.
Marjorie strokes his little cheeks and a huge smile spreads across her face.
I was just about to make some formula for him. Will you just hold him?
Of course. Oh my, he's just a little angel. He's the prince of angels, he is.
June fires up her hot plate, pulls a little pan from the cupboard, adds water and formula.
He hasn't made a peep since I left the hospital. He's so quiet.
He does have Walter's eyes.
Oh, doesn't he though?
Mm-hmm.
She pours the formula into a bottle, tests the temperature like a pro, and walks over to Marjorie.
Here, I'll take it.
Marjorie holds out her hand for the bottle.
That's okay. I'll do it.
M.
Oh, of course. Yes. Here he is.
Marjorie passes Walter Jr. to June. She takes him and sits. Marjorie sits right next to her. June holds the bottle to his mouth and he starts sucking.
Here you go, Walter Jr.
His big eyes attentively watch the women as his little mouth suckles the bottle. Tears start running down Marjorie's face.
Oh my goodness, he's just a little doll. He's the prince of the angel dolls.
The two women watch Walter Jr. drink as if they are seeing God. Walter Jr. holds their gazes with a little smile. Eventually he finishes the formula. June carefully removes the bottle and burps him. She sets him on the bed. He yawns, smiles at her, and closes his eyes.
Look how good he is.
It's like he's supposed to be here.
I know. I didn't have enough money for any clothes.
Oh, I have some of my son's old baby clothes in my room. I'll bring them over.
In the morning. I've got to get some sleep.
The women walk to the door.
I'm so sorry about your husband.
I know. Thank you.
They hug. Marjorie exits. June walks to the bed and lays down. She strokes Walter Jr.'s fine hair and quietly sings.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Walter. Happy birthday to you.
A tear runs down her cheek. She lays her head on a pillow and falls asleep. Interior June's bathroom, morning. June reaches into the bathtub, checks the water temp, and turns off the water. She turns and unwraps a towel from around Walter Jr., picks him up, and very carefully sets him in 2 inches of water. He smiles at her and grabs his toes. She stirs some baby wash into the water and gently washes him, and starts quietly singing a lullaby. Exterior June's bedroom. Stephanie walks up and is about to knock at the door when she hears the lullaby. She stops, listens for a second.
Poor dear.
She turns to leave and bumps into Marjorie, who is lovingly admiring a little blue onesie as she walks. She has a few more under her arm.
Hi, Marjorie.
Marjorie freezes when she sees Stephanie.
What you got there?
These little things? Just something I thought might cheer June up a bit.
Well, okay. She needs her friends now more than ever.
Stephanie leaves. Marjorie exhales. That was close. She knocks on June's door.
It's me. Let me in.
The door opens and Marjorie scoots inside. Down the hall, Mrs. Harbinger peers suspiciously at the goings-on.
Oh, it's perfect. Thank you.
And I brought more. Look.
Oh,
The ladies move to the bed and lay the clothes out. Walter Jr. lays on his back naked, looking at the women.
They belonged to my son when he was so tiny, just coming home from the hospital.
thank you, Em.
The women slip Walter into the blue onesie. He looks down at the cloth and giggles.
He likes it.
He loves it.
There's a knock at the door.
Junie, it's Mr. Shillowatts.
Oh no, maybe she doesn't know we're here.
Marjorie, I saw you go in there. Open the door.
Darn it.
Okay, take him into the bedroom. I'll get rid of her.
Okay.
Marjorie scoops up Walter Jr. and enters the bathroom. June opens the door for Mrs. Shillowatts, who immediately pushes by her.
Oh my goodness, Junie, I am so sorry.
She hugs June awkwardly with her walker in between them.
Oh, you poor dear. Walter was such a good man, such a good man. You must be crushed.
Mrs. Charlotte, now isn't the best time.
Oh, he was so good to you. I thought he'd outlive you for sure, with that heart of yours and all, and and although you beat it, you never know. I mean, you never know, June. These things have a way of coming back. Then they get you, and then you're down again. And I should know, I got gout again. Horrible affliction, painful. Oh, phew, you have no idea. And I think I'm passing a kidney stone right now. It's like passing the devil himself. Oh, I baked you some cookies.
Mrs. Shillowatts hands her a Tupperware container of cookies, looks around the room.
Where's Marjorie? I saw her come in here.
June is just the worst liar in the world. Cut to interior June's bathroom. Marjorie is completely consumed by playing with Walter Jr. She buries her face in his round tummy, looks up and smiles at him, then does it again, completely forgetting her secret mission. Walter Jr. giggles loudly. Back to interior June's bedroom. June and Mrs. Shillowatts stare at each other.
What's going on here? What are you doing with Marjorie? She's your best friend, June.
Mrs. Shillowatz awkwardly pushes past June towards the bathroom. June blocks her, but she's surprisingly strong as she pries the bathroom door open. Marjorie spins to see Mrs. Shillowatz and freezes. Mrs. Shillowatz sees Walter Jr. on the counter and...
Oh my God.
I can explain.
Well, who is this little darling?
She pushes her walker into the small bathroom, trying to get at Walter Jr., forcing Marjorie into the toilet.
He is just a little darling, he is.
He's a prince.
Oh, he is a little prince.
And an angel.
He's the prince of all angels.
That's what I said.
What's his name?
Walter Jr.
Huh? Walter Jr.? Oh, isn't that perfect?
Walter Jr. smiles at Mrs. Shillowatz.
Oh, he just smiled at me.
He smiles at everyone.
Oh, I have to hold it.
She wrestles her walker further into the bathroom and picks up Walter Jr.
Mrs. Charlowitz, you cannot tell Stephanie about Walter Jr.
What do you mean?
Well, she can't know that he is living here.
He's living?
Mrs. Shillowatz pushes out of the bathroom, somehow balancing Walter Jr. and operating her walker at the same time. Interior June's bedroom. Mrs. Shillowatz looks around the room.
But where is he sleeping? In your bed? Oh, well, that won't do. I will be right back.
She hands Walter Jr. to June and charges out with the same gusto she came in. June and Marjorie stare at each other and take deep breaths.
You think she'll keep her mouth shut?
Doubtful.
There's a knock at the door.
It's me. Open up.
June and Marjorie look at one another in amazement. June opens the door. Mrs. Shillowatz pushes by with Mr. Hughes, who is carrying a beautiful wooden bassinet.
Where is he?
This was my son's. I kept it all these years.
Mrs. Charlowitz, we told you not to tell anyone.
Well, how was I supposed to carry it? Put it over there, Hughes.
Mr. Hughes sets the bassinet down in the corner of the room and moves over to Walter Jr. on the bed.
Oh my. Ha! He is precious.
Mr. Hughes picks him up and is caught in Walter Jr.'s magic spell, grinning like an idiot at the child.
He reminds me of my grandson when he was this little. I used to read to him, Dr. Seuss. He loved it. Oh, I think I still have them here. I'll be right back.
He sets down Walter Jr., leaves the room.
Mrs. Charlowitz, you can't tell anyone else about Walter Jr. He's not supposed to be here.
Are you kidding? My mouth is glued shut. Glued.
Yeah, there's a knock at the door.
It's me, Hughes. Open up.
Has he got rockets for feet?
Marjorie opens the door. Mr. Hughes steps in holding several Dr. Seuss books. Behind him, Mrs. McNeely strolls in.
Mrs. McNeely? Mr. Hughes?
I'm sorry. The old bat wouldn't stop following me.
Shut up! Running like you're on some top secret mission.
She sees Walter.
Oh, there he is! You weren't lying, old coot. Can I please hold him?
Why not?
Mrs. McNeely picks up Walter and quickly drifts off into her own world.
And we're gonna need some blankets for the bassinet. I don't have any blankets.
Oh, I do. I have some for my granddaughter when she was just a little tiny thing.
Those are for a girl.
They'll work just fine.
She sets down Walter Jr. and exits. Mrs. Shillowatz and Mr. Hughes are playing with Walter on the bed. June leads into Marjorie.
We can't let anyone else know about him.
I know this is getting out of hand.
There's a knock on the door.
It's me! Open up!
Mrs. McNeely walks in, followed by Mrs. Sanborn.
I hear there's a new addition to our family.
You've got to be kidding.
June and Marjorie share a look as Mrs. Sanborn walks over to Walter with a huge smile. Interior June's bedroom 1 week later. June's room has been transformed into what now looks like a nursery. Children's books line the shelves. Piles of stuffed animals fill the corners of the room. Musical mobiles hang around the room and over the bassinet, which is adorned with baby blankets. The room is filled with seniors, all huddled around Walter Jr. They laugh and play with him, all trying to get his attention. Walter Jr. soaks up the attention. June smiles. The energy and joy in this room is something that has been missing from this building for a long time. Exterior June's bedroom. Mrs. Harbinger opens her door and slowly creeps up to June's door. She listens to the ruckus. Interior timeless Tucson hallway day. Mrs. Shalowatz flies down the hallway with a package swinging from her walker. She passes Stephanie in the hall.
Whoa, what's the hurry, Mrs. S?
Well, I just got this package from my daughter. They're glass bottles for Walter. June's been using the plastic ones and they're no good. I told her glass, but she didn't listen. So I had to get them myself.
Wait a second, Walter? Mrs. S, he passed away.
No, Walter Jr., little Walter, the baby. He needs his nutrition so he can grow fast.
Stephanie stops Mrs. Shalowatz.
Baby?
Mrs. Shalowatz bites her lips. Oops. Exterior June's bedroom. Mrs. Harbinger has her ear pressed against the door as Stephanie and Mrs. Shalowatz approach.
Not baby. I mean, it's not a baby. It's just me being crazy. You know me, crazy.
Mrs. Harbinger sees them and pulls her ear away from the door.
There's something going on in there. Something is going on.
I got it, Mrs. Harbinger. Just relax.
Stephanie listens at the door to the noise for a second, then knocks on the door. June opens it mid-laugh until she sees Stephanie. Mrs. Shalowatz hangs her head in shame. Interior June's bedroom. All talking and laughter stop as Stephanie enters the room. The crowd parts as she slowly walks over to the bed and takes a good look at Walter Jr. He smiles at her and giggles. Interior Stephanie's office. Stephanie paces in her office. June sits in a chair and Walter is in his bassinet on the desk.
I can't believe you've been hiding a newborn in your room this whole time. Do you know how much trouble you could be in?
I'm sorry.
What were you thinking?
I don't know.
Where did you get him?
At the hospital, Save Heaven or something.
Safe haven? Someone was dropping him off using the safe haven law and you took him from the hospital?
No, outside. There was a young girl. She just couldn't leave him.
So who's the mother?
I don't know. I didn't get her name. She had 2 black eyes and said the father told her she couldn't keep him, and she was very sad.
June, you can't just go taking babies.
Oh, I didn't take him. She handed him to me, and he looked at me with those eyes. He has Walter's eyes, and it made me forget about everything.
But June, what were you planning on doing?
Well, I thought I might adopt him.
June!
Well, we do really well together. And
June, the state would never let somebody your age adopt a baby. Where would you keep him?
well, here.
At Timeless Tucson? Are you kidding?
Everybody loves him so much. Everybody would help care for him. I mean, he'd have more loving and attentive parents than he ever would in foster care.
Well, you have a point there.
We've all raised children and grandchildren. We've had practice. Everyone is so good with him.
But June, when he's 10, you'll be 92. When he's ready to start driving, 98. Don't you see?
I wanted to die at the hospital. I just wanted to die. He's the only thing that's keeping me going. Please don't take him away from me. Please.
Stephanie's intercom beeps.
What is it?
There's a Miss Lipschitz here to see you
What?
with CPS.
Tell her to go away. I don't want to see her.
She's here about the baby?
Oh, no. How did she find out?
What is it?
She's with Child Protective Services. We went to school together. I hate that woman.
Through the glass, Abigail Lipschitz, late 30s, dressed in offensively bright colors, storms past Mrs. Bell. She is followed by a smug Mrs. Harbinger.
You can't let her take Walter Jr.?
Believe me, she's the last person I would turn this little man over to. But I may have no choice.
Abigail and Mrs. Harbinger burst through the door.
Stephanie,
Abigail.
you've put on weight.
And you are still spending all your money on clothes.
Beth here tells me you've been illegally harboring a missing child.
Mrs. Harbinger.
You must mean Walter Jr. here?
I'll take him, please.
Mrs. Lipschitz grabs the bassinet with Walter Jr. in it. He begins to cry. Stephanie grabs it too.
Let go. He is a ward of the state now.
He's not illegal. He was brought to us.
Oh, really? Under what circumstances?
Safe haven.
Excuse me?
Yes, under the Safe Haven law, any state-authorized care facility or church can accept unwanted children. Walter Jr. here was brought to us.
He was brought to you.
Yes, and by law, we have 7 days to decide what the best care would be for the child.
From what I understand, he's been here for at least that long. And since you don't seem to have a plan for him, I'll take him.
He's being adopted.
Adopted? Really? By June? Stephanie, even you should know that would never pass. Maybe if she were married. But a single woman her age? Well.
No, not her.
Well, then who? You?
No. Timeless Tucson.
Excuse me?
Yes, that's right. Timeless Tucson is going to adopt Walter Jr.
Come on. What is your problem?
No problem. Except you. Now please let go of Walter Jr. and leave.
You can't do this. This won't work.
She lets go of the bassinet. Walter Jr. immediately stops crying.
We'll see what the courts have to say about this.
Well, then we will see you in court. Goodbye.
Mrs. Lipschitz and Mrs. Harbinger abruptly turn and storm out of the office. Stephanie exhales as June jumps up and down with joy.
Oh my gosh, what a fantastic idea!
Oh my God, what have I done?
Oh, I'm so happy!
Listen, June, please keep this quiet until I figure out what to do.
June scoops up Walter Jr. and exits Stephanie's office. Interior Timeless Tucson cafeteria day. A large crowd of concerned seniors have gathered. June enters and holds Walter up in the air.
They let you keep him?
Yes!
What did they say?
Well, Stephanie stood up to the woman from CPS and told her that we were going to adopt Walter.
Oh my goodness. we get to
what?
keep. We get to keep him?
Oh, that's great news.
She moves over towards June. The whole crowd follows, closing in on her in a group hug. Just then, Walter Jr. loudly poops his pants and lets out a little squeal.
Did he
Interior June's bedroom. June hums as she changes Walter Jr.'s diaper. There's a knock at the door.
June, it's Stephanie. May I come in?
Oh, of course.
Stephanie opens the door, steps in. June's room is now packed with baby items. Changing table, blankets, mobiles, toys. It's impressive. She looks around the room in amazement.
Wow, you bought all of this?
Oh, no, it's all been brought here by the residents.
They bought it all?
They all had it. Saved from their kids and grandkids.
I see.
Stephanie sits on the bed next to June.
June, I need to talk to you. I stood up for you today, but I am having second thoughts.
Well, you did the right thing. I mean, that woman is a piece of work, isn't she?
She is a pill, but that's not my concern.
Oh, Walter Jr. will be just fine. He's too young to understand.
June, I need to know you're okay.
I'm fine, Stephanie.
June, look at me. Adopting a baby is no small feat. In and of itself, it's a monumental task. Add that it has never been done by any institution rather than an individual, and well, we face an extremely difficult and convoluted uphill battle. I agree that the baby would have a much better home here than with foster parents. I know you all, and I am certain he would get the best of care and attention, but we will need to convince a judge of all that. And they will be looking for reasons not to let you keep him. We cannot enter into this lightly.
Well, I'm certain if we all pitch in and...
June, I'm worried about you. You just lost Walter, and you're carrying around an infant you're calling Walter Jr. You have got to understand my concern.
I know how crazy this must look. I get it. And there's certainly a part of me that is neglecting my grief around Walter. I'm aware of that. Something put me on that bench next to that young woman when this child needed something. And regardless of my pain, I believe Walter Jr. needs me, needs us. We've been given a chance to have a positive effect on this child's life. I think we would be remiss if we didn't try to do everything we can.
The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Gandhi said that.
Look at this room. I didn't ask anyone for anything. Walter Jr. has made everyone here so happy. Even if we fight the good fight and lose, at least we tried. And everyone here will have the joy of Walter Jr. for a while, at least.
Okay. As long as you understand we might lose, I will do all I can.
It is selection.
Just full disclosure for when I'm insulting Rodney shortly. Rodney and I have known one another a very long time. He was in our original writing, the Coronet Writers Lab, which still exists today. And if you want to go weekly and have live reads, you should check it out, Coronet Writers Lab. But just in order to just go through my process, I read all of the scripts that get entered blind. I don't know who's entered what until they've been through a read. And then I hand over, I sort of sort out what I think is sort of like the top 10-ish sort of thing. And then I hand them over to another reader who also reads them blind. And then he gives me his top 10 in order, and we have arguments and figure out how we're going to do this. But unfortunately, Rodney's ended up in the top 2, so I had to pick him. So that's why. So I just wanted to dispel any concerns that I'm picking my mates to come up and read. I like to be. I actually do take this super seriously. So I do try to do that. So and that's why we're left with Rodney. So
Whether you like it or not.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, why not? Stick to the thing. So that was hugely hopeful for me, which is something that I am constantly seeking out at the moment. I think that there was like a period there where I think we were, particularly the scripts that were coming into us and that we were reading, they felt like they were being very reactive to this moment that we were living in, and they were kind of like aggressively attacking it. And I actually feel like the hope that this represents and the sort of, and I mean this in the best way, the softness of the storytelling, in the best way, not soft, you know what I mean, is amazing, and exactly, I think, the kind of thing that audiences are looking for right now. So that, to me, that says it's hugely commercial, is how I feel. And it also reminds me a lot of things that, like as I was kind of like jotting down comps for this, I realized how many of these shows I had been seeking out recently. So things like Grace and Frankie and the Kaminsky Method, and a show by Ricky Gervais called Derek. I don't know if any of you've seen it. If you haven't, you should go and watch it immediately, which is brilliant. And they're all incredibly tasteful of ways of approaching aging, which I think is something that people don't like to talk about and don't want to shine light on. So that's my long way of saying I loved it, and it really kind of gave me a sense of remembering that there's goodness in humanity, and I do think that that's something that we desperately need in our storytelling right now. I also love that the community that emerges. It emerges a little bit too quickly for me. I think that I would like to see a little bit more setup of the home that they live in. I want to see how little Walter transforms their lives, and so I love how the movie opens. I think that's a really hilarious setup. But at the same time, I would like to see a little more of the home that they live in and the community. And like I said, just to really kind of feel the transformational effects of him entering their lives. I'd also like to, misdirect Stephanie for a little bit longer. Like, I like the idea that she sees June in the hallway, talking about Walter Jr. and she sees people, taking random baby things into her room, and just kind of, you almost want her to think that she's experienced some sort of, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, psychosis? What would it be? Like, she's trying to deal with her grief in a particular way, and Stephanie might think that that's manifesting, in this particularly odd way. Because it just felt a little abrupt when she kind of walks into the room and suddenly she's kind of like in on this kind of conspiracy, basically. So I think that could take a little longer, which is usually not what I would give. I usually say make it faster, but I think we can slow that down. One thing that maybe felt like a teeny bit attenuated was just having everybody enter the room and enter his life. I do say that though, and then I kind of want to take it back because there's a lot of fun to be had in meeting all of these characters and seeing them contribute to this little life. And again, I think that goes back to wanting to see how they've transformed in some way. And then maybe I'll let you do that for a little longer.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to jump in? I have something. Yeah.
Yeah, more?
No, go on. No, go on.
Well, I agree. I think that, I obviously liked it, but I thought there were a bunch of characters coming in, and for a period it felt a little bit like they were all standing around in the same, almost like it was just another person coming in, we were having a repeat conversation, and they were just bringing in a different item, but it was the same note. And they tell you, when we had Chris DeFario up here, he was like, never repeat information to the audience, and there was a lot of times that June had to explain. I think we heard the story about where baby Walter came from at least 3 times. And there may be more creative ways to get around that. My big issue when I was reading it was I just didn't know what the stakes were. They take the baby away, things go back to normal at the thing, and they're like, remember when we had the baby? And everybody's like, no, I don't remember because we're all old. Was that just me? You know what I mean? I wasn't sure what the stakes were. So for a while I thought, well, maybe they're trying to keep the baby from Stephanie, but then you took that one away. And then it's like, so is the next 60 minutes, because it's a feature, right? So is the next 60 minutes just going to be a court case while these old people coo about a baby? And there was nothing set up. If I'm 30 minutes into a movie and I'm sitting here and I'm just like, I don't know, it's not like I don't know where it's going to go, and that's great. It was more, I don't know what else you have. Because I feel like the conceit, it's a great idea. What if I put a baby in a retirement home? Awesome. But I wasn't sure that you had laid enough, we're going to see, again, to Felicity's point, there was no lady or man who was detached, apart from Mrs. Harbinger, but there was no one who's was going to be the last piece of the puzzle, or there was going to be whose life was going to be the final one to be transformed, or that we were going to see how grey this place was, and eventually baby Walter was going to give them colour and life as their final sort of moment, where it became less about the adoption and more about just their last moment, whatever it was your path was. None of that was sort of really clear for me, and I was like, I'm worried that we're just going to get into a knockdown drag out about whether or not a retirement home can have a baby. And if they lose, they just hand the baby back. So I don't know what the answer to that is. I wish I had stakes for you. That was a concern. I know that the counter argument to that was who gives a crap? It's old people with this baby and they get this moment and that's enough. So that may just be that I want more story, but I really did. The other thing I really want to say is, as a parent of twin newborns, I'm really, really hoping that Walter starts to be an asshole at 3 o'clock in the morning. because
you know what reality of the movies too.
Yeah, no, but I think it gives you extra comedic value when the reality of being a newborn, having a newborn, comes in quickly, because it's hardcore having a newborn. And I sort of feel at this point, it's lovely, but I'm really hoping that that starts to seep in, because I think that gives you another obstacle and another potential edge, where it's some of the old people are like, oh, this is lovely, and then a couple of them are like, this is really hard. And are we doing the right thing? And so I would. It just gives you some other places like this. Just, and I think you can really. Oh, and one other small point was Mrs. Harbinger came into the scene with Abigail Lipschitz and didn't say a word. So you had a character who walked into the scene, was present for the entire scene, and didn't say a word. I would look at that, especially when it's Mrs. Harbinger, and as played by Doris, we want to hear every freaking word she says. Because she's the one bitch in the room, the one negative voice, and so it would be really fun to sort of play with that, and at the moment she's a little bit mute. So I just would, I think there's a lot to be made from the individual characters of the old people. If you're going to have all of those characters, it would be great if they brought their own piece to this, not just their own piece of baby furniture, but their own transformative, whatever this baby's going to do for them. It's almost like Cocoon. I mean, I guess this is the closest thing, really. Now it's popped into my head, where they find this, and those cocoons apply differently to every one of the old people. They each come to this with a different backstory and are transformed in their own unique way. And I think that is what is sort of lacking right now and could easily be inserted, and then all of my worries about stakes will become less important because it's more of a character thing. We're seeing how this baby is transforming. So that's what I think.
Just to your point about stakes, I mean, I only had the benefit of hearing the first 30 pages, so I can't speak to where...
Me too. I haven't read it
yet. Oh, you hadn't?
No, I've only read 30 pages too.
Oh, okay. So you were just speculating about what was going to happen.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
I'm assuming aliens come down at some point.
Right, yeah.
There's more directions.
Yeah,
more directions.
That's what everybody needs.
Yes.
Old people are just
Yeah. No, I should say, there was a moment where social services arrives and she's talking to Stephanie, and Stephanie mentions that there's a 7-day window in which to give the baby back, and I kind of felt like, oh, that's a really great, that's a great ticking clock for us. So what does happen? So, well, you don't have to tell us the entire story, but I am curious to know, what is that ticking clock that's kind of driving the narrative? Do they have 14 days before someone's going to come in and take the baby away, or does somebody actually have to finalize the paperwork to adopt him? I won't keep guessing.
No, the ticking clock is going to become the court case. So what happens with the underlying cases and how they the community is going to show that they're able to care for the baby.
Got it.
At the end, what happens is they lose, and the mom shows up. Right as they're about to give the baby back, but of course the entire community has put together this whole thing to block the deputies and Mrs. Showas from getting the baby, and they have all these traps set up in the and it's kind of a cute scene. But once that's all done, and Mrs. Showas is covered, her clothes are all torn, and police officers are burnt, and all this crazy stuff.
It's like Home Alone.
And they're all talking.
All Home Alone.
Yeah, they're talking to each other on baby monitors. It's pretty good. And they're walkers and whatever. Then right as they're
pit of comedy,
as they're handing the baby, the mom shows up and says, "That's my baby." And but she doesn't have a job. Stephanie offers a job on the spot. She says yes. You don't have a place to live, and that's when Mrs. Harbinger comes in and says, "You can have mine. I don't need all this space. I got the only double room in the whole place. You can have it." And so she actually is the hero at the end. So that's how it happens. But through the court case is really brutal because they actually accused June of trying to murder her husband Walter because she got him Viagra off the street and killed him. And she sort of fires up a little romance with Mr. Fiorucci, the Italian guy.
Yeah, he was hot.
Yeah. And he used to be an attorney in Italy, and the Italian justice system is completely different. So they're just walking and screaming at each other, and so he does more damage than good trying to represent, Walter. But so they spin it that she tried to kill her husband to be with Mr. Fiorucci, so she throws up her hands and says, "Uncle." And which is a tough moment for her and for everybody. But
so, what would you say, given the boring screenplay talk? What would you say would be June's emotional journey through this? Who is she at the beginning, and then who is she at the end? Because it's sort of her story, right?
Yeah, she's somebody who's, has lost all will to live, and at the end has regained.
And just to that point, I think that there is room to really bottom her out. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, she's just seen her husband die. She's leaving the hospital. She's got no net. We just find out that she's got no other family. Like, she's completely alone in the world. Like, that's pretty, like, we're getting pretty deep to the bottom. But I just wonder whether there's, like, one more moment for her that we just really see that spiral. And so when she does meet the mother, maybe is there something that you think represents that already?
I think her being accused of murder.
I see. So her bottom is kind of later on.
Yeah, a little later on when.
Got it. Okay.
They really throw everything at her.
Yeah.
And accuse her of murdering the man she's been with for 65 years.
So she's kind of she gets the baby. She sort of has this little peak. She's a little eye on the. What are they, like the mother endorphins or whatever? You can tell I'm not a mother, so.
Whatever that is.
Whatever.
That stuff, allegedly.
Allegedly. So she has a little peak, and then she sort of starts to then spiral down because of the court case, and then she really bottoms out, and then.
Yeah.
She comes out. Okay.
So she's actually not there. She's like Walter is gone when Abigail does show up to finally take the baby, and she gets to the cafeteria, and all the other residents are there, like trying to do a human blockade, like she's nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
And we don't know where she's gone. Then she finally walks up and she's
She's
we lose,
Well, one small thing would just be there were two conversations between June and Stephanie in those 30 pages that we just heard, where she said, "I'm not sure you're up to it," kind of in two different ways. So you may want to just sort of trim one of those, just sort of get into it rather than have everybody talk about, well, this is what's coming. Maybe just have it come. Just let's move forward. Because one of those conversations is cute, where she says, well, actually, I don't know if you need it at all. I mean, I think Stephanie could just be like, holy crap, what have I done? And June's like, let's go, and you could barrel in. Because you say everything when June is lying there with the baby singing happy birthday to Walter. That scene is very evocative and was really well done, by the way. Well done to you. But that says, subtextually, everything that some of the characters later on say, which they probably don't need to say, you can probably just let get into the court case and let the story roll without having characters necessarily get too deep into their reasons for doing things and their meaning of things, and sort of let it play a little bit so that we can kind of start to connect on our own. Because, as soon as Stephanie and June have the sort of second conversation, like, are you sure you're doing this? Because when Stephanie tells June, I'm sorry I'm getting into the weeds, when Stephanie tells June you're going to be 98 when he's driving, that's a different conversation to the last one on the last page on page 30, which means they're having almost the identical conversation in two separate scenes.
Yeah.
So, and
you're pretty close to each other too, like 4 pages apart. Yeah.
Right. And so you don't need to double up, and you can let us do some of the math in our head too, because we're all thinking, I hope, how the fuck are they going to raise a baby? They're all old. And when they're, I mean, as lovely as it is, but logistically this is a problem. So you probably don't have to hit it too hard. You can tease it because we give us some work to do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's really good. Thank you.
That's what
and they do screw it up along the way. I mean,
Please tell me there's a 3 a.m. in the morning scene and it's like you take the baby and the baby's crying and crying and no one knows what to do and they're all trying to, and one of them wants to put in rum on the gums. It's like, oh, he's teething. All the old wives' tale stuff that the older generations do. Like,
give him whiskey.
Right. Yeah. All that kind of stuff. You have so much. There's a lot in actually having a newborn with being raised by a group that is fodder for comedy. I know any parent will agree with me. So, do you have anything?
No, I was just going to say, and freeing up that real estate that you're talking about, just doing that general tightening is going to give you so much more time to spend with this incredible ensemble of people, because that's where all the joy comes from and all the comedy. And once they start talking, you're like, I could just watch this forever.
Yes.
Like, it's incredible. So spend more time on that than explaining.
Right. Yes.
Everything else in the periphery.
Yes, because then you can give their characters much more richness and make them much more real, and have them be very different from each other.
Yeah.
And then you have, it's awesome. All right, any other thoughts? Is that you with the back? Jack? Yes, Jack, hello.
Yeah, I agree with Felicity's.
But not mine, is that what you're saying?
What stopped me the most in it was just Stephanie's sort of dynamic, towards the beginning, she was there a lot with her, obviously at the hospital, and June was trying to avoid being seen by her in certain ways. And then she just kind of went away for a while. I think it would be great to bring in some more. If you mentioned like you're going to do like Home Alone type shenanigans later, maybe the group of seniors get together to do something to make sure Stephanie doesn't find something out. Just something kind of bring her in to kind of build that up a little bit. Maybe Stephanie starts having suspicion something is up, because it was just really sudden that she was just like, oh, this is wrong, you have a baby, and then suddenly she's like, oh, but I'm going to support you. Just that part stood out a lot to me, and so that would be my biggest thing I would say I would like to see.
Thank you.
Very good. Yes.
I loved it. It was really, really funny, very touching. I think I would, what these two were saying, slow it down and show how depressing it is. And the one other change is anytime any of the seniors go, they have rockets for feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of happens to all of them. So I think another way to do that is Stephanie's walking down the hall, and one of the seniors doesn't say what they're going to get, they just disappear. And behind Stephanie's back, they're carrying a bassinet. Where are you getting a bassinet? And they're like all individually trying to hide that from the nurse.
From Stephanie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. This side. Doris.
Oh, I just thank you for writing so many old ladies. It's just a joy.
Thank you. You guys did such a great job too. Like, it was such a pleasure.
Yeah.
I loved it. I don't think, just me personally, I love elder comedies. I don't think I've ever seen one that I didn't enjoy or died laughing at. Just a silly thought that I had throughout the whole thing. I think it's what it is. I thought it'd be funny if one of them had dementia or something, and each time they saw the baby. You know what I mean? Like, oh, baby! The scene you described in the movie, if they're all and stuff like that.
That's funny.
Yeah. I thought it was great. I loved it.
That's funny because that's like a hard thing to keep from Stephanie as well. Like I think that's a really fun joke.
Yeah, that's good.
It's fun.
Anyone else? Anything? Karen.
Yeah, I love the characters. I thought the actors were amazing as well, and I also wanted to say so many older women characters. I love to see that, and I love that the mom comes back because I was worried about her. I was like, oh what? But I think the one thing that confused me, it felt like the tone shifted some. Maybe it's just me, but at the top there was a pretty dark dick death joke. You see the erection. But then the rest of it felt more like family-friendly, comedy to me. And it sounds like it goes down a darker path again, but also then has this Home Alone element. So I just wonder if there's going to be a need to choose one of those paths, or if maybe it's just me. I don't know, but it felt like that, or at first I thought it was going to be oh, this is a gritty, Netflix style thing. And then later it felt like it could almost be a PG rated that people could take their kids to. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That is a really good point. I think it's really smart. But I think the great thing about it is that you can go both ways, and it kind of is easy to, if you want to lean into this being harder, then okay, you can make that work within the framework that currently exists. But you can also totally family film this if you wanted to as well. Just drop the erection and you're done.
Yeah.
Right?
I have to drive. I do want it to be family friendly. That's really the direction I want.
Right. Yeah.
It's hard for Rodney to let an erection joke go, though.
Yes.
It's hard. You're gonna kill your
We'll
dogs.
cut it out in the Doris joke.
Yeah, kill your dogs. Kill your dogs. All right, one more. Yeah.
It was so much fun. One thing I had, I guess, a question about / suggestion is just, it mentions that June and Walter had children who passed away earlier, which sort of threw me off, because it's Walter Jr., and I was like, whoa, if they had a son before, that they did not like that son as much as they like this baby. But also just because June was in such a precarious position and everybody else was bringing children's stuff that they had saved, and June didn't have anything of her own to contribute to that, that it made me wonder, like, and also just, it made me wonder if there was value to them having had children, her being a parent who has lost her children, versus her and her husband being childless and having missed the chance to have a child, and then being granted one here. It just wasn't clear why we were finding out that they had kids who had passed, because it made me very unclear on what her relationship to being a parent was in that way.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair enough. All right. Rodney, do you have any questions for us?
No, this was really helpful. There's a couple of logic loops, and I heard some repeat stuff that it's just tweaks, but it was really nice to hear it. And I think you guys did such a great job. I can't see where everybody is, but it was it's lovely. It was so lovely to hear it, and I really appreciate you guys taking your time, and I appreciate all your notes.
Very good. Rodney Wilson, everyone.